You know, we always talk about technology for all the amazing things it can do, how it connects us, how it heals us. But what happens when those very same tools are turned against the population? Well, that's what we're looking at today, the dark side of dual-use tech. This is the authoritarian playbook for the digital age.
All right, welcome back. This is part 3, the final installment of our series on dual-use technologies. And in this one, we're diving deep into how these incredibly powerful tools are being actively used by authoritarian regimes around the world to really tighten their grip on power.
So let's get right into it. The big idea here is something called digital authoritarianism. And what this is, it's a totally new kind of control, one that's built on code and data. It's about using tech to automate oppression, and the scale and precision, it's honestly terrifying.
Okay, so how does this actually work? What are the nuts and bolts of it? What are the strategies and the tools that are actually being used? Let's break down the basic mechanisms of digital control. It really comes down to these 4 pillars. First, you build a massive surveillance infrastructure to watch pretty much everyone all the time. Then you use all that data for predictive repression, which is a fancy way of saying you stop dissent before it can even start. At the same time, you control the entire narrative through information control. And finally, you actually shape how people behave with social engineering, basically rewarding you for falling in line and punishing you if you step out.
Let's take a perfect example of this, predictive policing. Now, on the surface, you might think, hey, that sounds great, right? Stopping crime before it happens? But think about what happens when an authoritarian regime gets its hands on this. The crime they're looking to predict isn't robbery, it's dissent. The technology gets completely repurposed to identify and neutralize political opponents.
And the process is chillingly methodical. First, they just suck up enormous amounts of data on everyone to build profiles. Then, the algorithms get to work recognizing patterns that the government decides are risky. This leads to preemptive intervention. I mean, literally detaining someone before they've even done anything. And here's the kicker. The system just keeps amplifying its own biases. It creates this vicious cycle, a self-fulfilling prophecy of repression.
Now, I know this sounds like something out of a dystopian movie, but it is absolutely not science fiction. These tools are being used right now, today, with devastating real-world consequences. So let's take a look at the playbook in action.
When you look at who's really perfected this playbook, all eyes turn to China. They've built the most comprehensive system of digital control we've ever seen. It's a 3-pronged approach. The Great Firewall cuts citizens off from the global internet. A massive network of over 200 million AI cameras means you're basically being watched all the time. And then there's the social credit system, which automates social control by rewarding and punishing behavior on an unbelievable scale. And if you want to see this system at its most extreme, you have to look at the Xinjiang region. I mean, just look at this timeline. It is absolutely chilling. In just a couple of years, a complete surveillance state was built from the ground up. This led to the detention of over 1 million Uyghur people. And many of them were flagged not by a person, but by an algorithm, for doing things like praying or just having family overseas.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a story about one country. This technology, this whole model of digital authoritarianism, it's become a hot export.
So get this, the Carnegie Endowment found that this kind of advanced surveillance technology, a lot of it coming from China, has been sold to governments in more than 80 countries.
And you better believe there's a lot of money in it. This global market is on track to hit $23 billion by 2027. That's a powerful financial reason to keep spreading these tools.
So what's the result of all this? Well, at least 18 regimes that Freedom House calls not free have already put these Chinese-style surveillance systems into place to cement their own power.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, we've talked about the numbers, but behind all of that, there's a real, profound human cost. So what's it really like to live your life under the constant gaze of an algorithmic state?
Maybe the most sinister part of all this is how the censorship, it moves from the outside in. It's like the most effective prison becomes the one you build inside your own head. Because when you're being watched all the time, you start policing yourself.
Just listen to this. This is from a Chinese student studying abroad. They said, "You learn to never say what you really think, even to close friends. After a while, you stop thinking certain thoughts altogether." Think about that. It's not just about what you're not allowed to say out loud. It's about the thoughts you stop allowing yourself to even have. And it goes even deeper than that. It rips apart the very fabric of society. As this Uyghur refugee said, the surveillance didn't just monitor us, it destroyed our family relationships. Imagine that. Fear completely replaces trust, even with your own family, the people you should be closest to. So you can see the consequences are just devastating. You've got widespread psychological trauma, anxiety, paranoia. You have the complete breakdown of trust in society. And ultimately, you lose your own autonomy. Your life just becomes this performance of compliance, and genuine choice gets erased.
Look, I know this all sounds incredibly bleak. It is, but it's not hopeless. So what can we actually do about it? Let's talk about the path forward and how we can start to push back against this rising tide of digital control.
Well, trying to regulate this stuff is, to be honest, incredibly hard. You've got intense competition between countries, the tech is changing at lightning speed, corporations are pushing back. It's a huge, complicated mess that makes any simple solution pretty much impossible.
But there is a path forward. It's just not simple. It requires everyone to step up. Governments have to set clear rules and control exports. Corporations need to actually check for human rights impacts and have the courage to say no to harmful contracts. Civil society organizations have to keep exposing abuses. And for us as citizens, we have to demand better privacy protections and support the groups fighting for our digital rights.
And this really brings us full circle, back to the core idea of this entire series. The same AI that can save lives can also enable mass surveillance. The same social media that can fuel a protest movement can be used for censorship. See, the tools themselves, they aren't inherently good or evil. It all comes down to the values and the intentions of the people who use them.
And that really leaves us with one final, and I think crucial question. The direction technology takes isn't set in stone. It's not inevitable. It's built by us, and it can be shaped by us. So the real question for all of us is, what choices are we going to make to ensure it bends toward freedom and not toward control?